Hello, beautiful ladies, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about how to be the perfect guest. So a couple of weeks ago, I did a video on how to be a great hostess, and I thought I would follow up that video with how to be a great guest. Now, if you've ever stayed at somebody's house, it can be a little bit tricky figuring out how to navigate how to be a great guest, not be in the way, and just make the whole experience pleasant for everyone. So I thought I would share some of my tips and tricks for how to be the perfect guest that people feel comfortable inviting over and over again. Now here, I'm primarily talking about being an overnight guest. So if you're staying over at a friend's or with a family member, I'm not really talking about how to be a great dinner guest, but I can throw in some tips and tricks here and there about that too. So let's get into it. Now, most of my advice for being a good guest in somebody's house falls under the category of being clean. So a lot of it is just different ways that you can help the hostess by cleaning up after yourself so they don't have a huge mess to take care of when you leave. And it's always good to kind of have an idea of what that entails. Now, what I will say is that for myself, I didn't do a lot of overnight stays with friends and family when I was growing up. So I really didn't know all of these tips and tricks to be a good guest. I wasn't the best guest at people's houses because I really didn't know. And it wasn't until I stayed with my husband's parents quite a bit that I learned all of this stuff. So don't feel bad if you haven't done this before, because I definitely wasn't the best guest up until the past couple of years. So being a good guest doesn't necessarily come innately to people. It's something you kind of have to learn, which is why I really wanted to share this with you, because I didn't know it. I kind of had to learn on the job. And luckily I have wonderful in-laws. So my mother-in-law was wonderful about teaching me how to be a good guest and how to be a good hostess, but it wasn't necessarily something that I knew just off the bat. So the first thing to keep in mind is just to clean up after yourself. So let's take the example of staying with your in-laws. If you're at their house and you're able to go into their kitchen, make food, and it's just kind of flexible, you're allowed to go into the kitchen and do all of that, don't leave things out. Put everything away. Or if you're going to use dishes, put them in the sink or in the dishwasher. Don't necessarily leave things just out willy-nilly. Don't leave your belongings willy-nilly everywhere, just so that the hostess doesn't constantly feel like she has to pick up after you. So just kind of keep things in their place, maybe keep everything in your room. Also, it'll make things easier for when you leave. You won't have to be looking everywhere for your stuff. It'll just all be contained in your bedroom. Another thing you should definitely be doing is making the bed. Every day you get up, you should make the bed. Now, it's not that the hostess is necessarily going to be popping her head into your bedroom, because most of the time that's not happening, but there's something really nice and important about keeping that bed made so that if accidentally you do leave your door open or something like that, or if she needs to get something from that room or put something in there for you, it's not a mess when she goes in there. It feels like you're taking care of the hostess's house and of her things. So just making your bed, keeping your room somewhat clean, even though it is your room, will just make everything nicer and easier and make the hostess feel like you respect her space. Now, this one is something that you can definitely keep in mind even as a dinner guest, but it's also important for if you're staying at someone's house. Help with the dishes. Make sure that you are always at the ready to help wash the dishes, because dishes, as we all know, is a terrible chore. It's not fun. And if there's extra people in the house, there's going to be extra dishes too. So leaving that all for the hostess really isn't very nice. Now, a lot of hostesses may not ask you to help, but if you go out of your way to say, I'd really love to help, I'm going to go out of my way to do this for you, or even just doing it before she makes her way to the sink. Of course, don't invade her space, make sure that it's all very respectful, but make it known that you are happy to help, that it's not something that's a burden on you, that you're really there and you understand that this is a big ask to ask someone to wash so many extra dishes when you're staying there. So just make sure that you're constantly washing the dishes, that you're putting them in the dishwasher, and if you're at someone's house for dinner, you can put your stuff in the sink and then put it in the dishwasher too. Of course, ask their permission, make sure that you're not in their space and that it's all okay, but you absolutely should try and help if you can, because it's a very nice thing for you to do so that the hostess doesn't have more work to do. Next up is offer to help set the table. This is true, again, if you go for dinner or if you're just staying at someone's house. If you guys are all doing dinner together, make sure you offer to help to set the table, help make dinner, do whatever you can to make the hostess's life easier. Just make sure that you're constantly there, recognizing that you can make the whole experience so much easier by not really invading the space and making it feel like you are a stranger there, but more that you're there and you're willing to help. And of course, when you're visiting someone, make sure that you take enough space. Now, the hostess may not tell you that she wants you to have some space alone, but I will tell you from experience, having that little bit of time alone and separate will make sure that there's not a ton of tension building up where you never have alone time. Alone time is kind of essential for everybody, even if people don't recognize it. So just taking those moments alone and taking that time so that you're not in each other's faces constantly will make everything a lot easier. Now, when you arrive at the hostess's home, make sure that you bring a gift. Now, this can be for dinner or for staying at someone's house. If you're coming for dinner, make sure to ask if you can bring a side dish, a dessert, a wine, some sort of thing to take some burden off of the hostess again. And of course, you can always bring something extra. You can bring something nice for the house, a dish or whatever, or you can just bring wine and dessert. Whatever you want to bring, you definitely should. It'll just be a nice show of, oh, we're at somebody else's house, I'm a good guest, and I really want to respect their space and that they invited us into it. And then of course, if you're visiting somebody's house for a few nights, bring a gift for them as well in that case. So you'd want to bring maybe a bowl. Again, you could always bring a bottle of wine, anything that's almost like a housewarming gift, but you can also get something that's very tailored to the person you're staying with. If it's someone that you love and you know and is a good friend, you can always give them something that's a little bit more tailored for them, like a book or a notebook or something that just means a lot to them. Do that. Or let's say you have a friend who's really good at gardening, maybe bringing them a new plant. Things like that are really meaningful and people will really enjoy it. Now, when you leave, there's a very important step of stripping your bed and if you can, putting those sheets in the laundry. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that because some hostesses aren't comfortable with you going into their laundry room, but if you get permission, it would be so nice for you to at least throw your sheets into the washer because if you don't make it into the dryer, that's okay. But stripping the bed, making sure that the hostess can make the bed for the next guest that they have over makes everything a lot easier and it's very nice. And it also just takes that step away of having to clean up the big mess after guests come. So anything you can do to limit that mess so that having guests is a much more enjoyable experience is fantastic. And of course, make sure you take off the pillowcases too. Now, another nice thing you can offer to do is to make dinner. When my husband and I went to my in-laws' house, we actually had a big talk with the whole family because everybody was staying in the same house for a while. And my mother-in-law said, okay, we're all gonna take turns and we're all gonna cook dinner. And I thought that was a great idea. It took some burden off of her. It was a fun experience for us each to take a night cooking and kind of experiment and kind of see who cooked and what they made. And it's a fun, kind of interesting addition to the family vacation. But even if your hostess doesn't say, okay, we're each gonna take a night and cook dinner, maybe offer to cook dinner if you're staying there for an extended amount of time. Even if you're there for 4 days, maybe ask if one night you could cook dinner, just take some of the burden off. And it's just a nice thing to do. Last but not least, don't forget to leave a thank you note. You always want to make sure that your hostess feels very loved and that she knows that you're grateful that she gave you the space to stay and that you guys enjoyed your time together because maybe she saves those thank you notes or something like that. And it's just a nice gesture. So don't forget to leave a note maybe on the bed or just hand it to her as you're leaving and just make the whole event really nice. So that's my advice for how to be a really good guest at somebody's house. I think it's a good skill to be good at being at someone's house so that they want to invite you back because again, you're in somebody's space, so you want to make sure that you're being the best version of that. And I think it's a nice way to show that you are classic. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think about being a good guest, how to be a better guest at somebody's house, what you should do so that your hostess has a little bit of the burden taken off of her. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Please subscribe to my channel and blog if you haven't already. Head over to my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and follow me there. Hit that notification bell to get notified of all my new videos. Hit that like button. Please head over to classicallyabby.locals.com if you'd like to support my channel, see more of this content, and be part of our community. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!